A very good morning to everyone on a Sunday morning. So, whenever someone refers they are adopting, the first thought that crosses a common man's mind is they might be adopting an infant. We generally tend to forget there are plenty of children who are a little older, who are waiting to cherish the love and laughter with the family. Adoption is not
It's 11
restricted
o'clock.
to only infants. Unfortunately, the number of parents who have adopted older children are very few and far away. And in today's panel, we will talk about everything related to older children adoption. This panel is organized by Pragna, which was founded in November 2021 by me, that is Sahana Krishnamurthy, and Digangana Mukherjee, along with our core team members, Kirtana Venkatesh and Kameshwari Satish. So, to know more about us, about Pragna, so you can follow our page on Facebook, on Instagram, and you can also look into our website that is pragna.com. So today we have with us our esteemed panelist, Ms. Gayatri Bhatt. She's a psychotherapist practicing for more than 20 years and a passionate adoption counselor now. We also have Ms. Vandana Sharma, who is an IT professional, and Radhika Limaye, who is they both are adoptive parents and they have adopted older children. So a very warm welcome to everyone. We were supposed to have one of our esteemed panelists, Ms. Smriti Gupta, who is a child rights activist, but unfortunately, she's down with viral and COVID together and she couldn't make it up. So let's just start with our session today. Hello, Gayatri. Hello, Vandana. Hello, Radhika.
Hi.
So, welcome to our panel today. So, before we start our panel, I would like to thank each one of you for agreeing to be a part of this panel for Pragna. So let's start with the story of the parents because I want to, like the parents to talk first and let our audience know what exactly went through, their decision behind, adopting an older child. So we would love to hear from you, Vandana, first. So how was your journey of adoption? So how did you come to this decision, and were there any kind of hiccups while taking the decision or during the process?
Hi all. Yeah, Shahana, I think when I saw my child's face in the IP list, it just clicked with me and I fell in love with that face. And um I simply went ahead and called up the SA and asked if the child would give her consent to be with the family. And they said the child has been waiting for 8 years. The child is 12 years old. For 8 years she's been in that institution, and she's been asking regularly when my parents would come and take me along. So that just melted my heart, and I reserved her. So there were no hiccups at all.
Wow, wonderful. Were you always prepared to, like adopt an older child, or was there any kind of apprehension earlier?
Uh, no, there wasn't any apprehension, Chahana. That's a good question. So initially, I had registered on the Khara website to adopt a child between the ages of 8 and 10. The reason was I wanted to go for a mature child. Reason being, I am an IT professional. I work for at least 10 to 14 hours every day. So I thought we need to provide support to older children too. I was a counselor, adoption counselor for about 3 years, and I knew that a lot of older children are waiting for parents, and I had registered for that category. My child is 12 years old, so I think it just fit my family, and I simply reserved her. There were no challenges, I think, at that time.
Okay, wonderful. So, Radhika, how about you? Like, you are also into IT, I believe, and you already have a biological son. So, how was the journey with you? Like, how did you come to this decision of, like adopting an older child?
Yeah, it is the same reason, Sahana. My son is 18. Son was 18 years old. Now he is 19, and that's why we wanted an older child only, because then it will be a big gap. I wanted to raise them both as a siblings. So we decided to go for a age category between 8 to 10. But somehow the waiting period is more for 8 to 10. Same route we followed like Vandana. We gone through the IP list and we found Priya's profile. and we approached the agency, and we got her. There were no challenges initially.
Okay. So when you say there was no challenges, because usually when, like whenever we talk to other parents and we come across a lot of people who talk about older children, they say that they come with a baggage. So because they would have
Oh,
already
oh, oh.
spent a certain amount of time in the shelter. So how did it impact? Like, like what there in challenges after they came home, like, in terms of adjustment or in terms of bonding with them?
Yes, yes, of course. After Priya came home, there were a lot of challenges on the both sides. On like Priya also took time to settle here, and same with us also. So it's not a one-way bonding kind of a thing. It's both ways. So initially, she has spent 12 and a half years in an institution, and suddenly she is at home in a family kind of environment where a grandmother is also there, and so their rules are there, and family rules are strict. So you have to get up at a certain time, sleep at certain time, and you have to study. So they are not used to such kind of environment.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a very, very disciplined kind of environment, I will say, in a institution. Disciplined in the sense they will get up, and the timings are very much, I will say, strict. They will get food at 12 o'clock or sleep at so and so time. But in family, timings are important, but at the same time there are some emotional things also. So you have to listen to your grandparents and all. So Priya took a little long time, I would say, because she was older child. So it took time for her to mold, and we also have to understand that child comes from a different background. She doesn't know the family life at all, and but at the same time, even we don't know how things happen in institution. We just read some books, blogs, we meet some parents, but we don't go through that. Once you go through that, then a lot of things come on the surface. That's what we realized. And one more challenge is children who spend more time in institution, they uh, they are not able to express themselves. That is what I have observed. And also through the different, like I speak to different parents, expression is a different, like big challenge for them. So they will just get away. If they get angry, they will go away from there. So that was also one challenge, because then we can't communicate, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we feel that she's like angry, and she's not ready to listen, but it is not like that. It is just that she's not able to express herself.
Okay. How about you, Vandana? You also face similar problems or similar kind of challenges with your daughter?
Shahana, I think yes. When Radhika mentioned that the child doesn't have an experience of living in a family, so that is true. It took her some time. She had been in an institution where she was the oldest child in a group of 22 children.
Okay.
So she had been in that institution for more than 8 years. Initially, the first couple of weeks, she missed her friends terribly. Uh, for 2 to 3 weeks, she would keep asking me if I could also adopt her friends from the orphanage, and they could live as sisters. So I had to explain to her, no, there's a process, and maybe sometime later. But she's a very charming and expressive child, and she bonded with the family immediately. She had a little difficulty in school because she joined the school in the month of November, mid November. So the session was already going on. It took her time to make friends there. So she would not be that excited to go to school initially, but now I think she's settled.
Great. So, like you said, like I already mentioned, that there are a very few parents who are actually going for adopting older children. Like their reasons are different. So, I want to know from Gayatri now, like there are a lot of people who are adopting older children now these days, but somehow the number of children who are being returned back to the agencies or shelter is also there. So, what do you think is the probable reason that like parents are failing to adjust or like they're not able to cope up with their emotional like challenges? So what do you think is exactly happening, why the children are being returned to the agencies?
Um, See, all said and done, adoption is forming a family by a route that is not commonly experienced. Yeah, it's so-called not a natural route to forming a family. So whether it is older child or younger child, adopting a child that was not born to you is it itself needs a lot of preparation. Yeah. Usually, what happens with a very small child, from the time as if the child has been adopted from a very early age, uh, the child has the chance to gradually grow up and bond with the parent. Hopefully, they are consistent. There is consistent parenting. So this is not only about children who come into a family by adoption, but each of us, all of us, in the natural course of our development, when we have gone through some consistent, reasonably consistent circumstances in the growing up, we bond with whoever the caretaker. Sometimes the parents may not be available or busy. There are grandparents. There could be a nanny in the family. The child is very well bonded, right? Consistency is very important. So now, given that the child who is displaced from that natural course of life and now grows up in an institution. So we are supposing that the child has grown up in the institution right from the beginning. The truth is that children come to the institution at different ages in their life due to different circumstances. Uh, the best case scenario, if a child has grown up with reasonably caring parents or family, and then due to certain circumstances has to be in an institution and is further placed in a family, already has an experience of bonding and trusting caretakers. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a great start. Yeah. Given the social circumstances, the children who are available for adoption in the care system are often coming from very difficult circumstances. So it's not just about the stay in the institution. In fact, the institutional stay is probably so much more consistent and better than what they would have gone through in their birth families. Yeah, uh, that doesn't mean that we are not comparing the physical care as much as the emotional care. Institutions, the best of institutions, are not able to give that kind of one-to-one care because
Correct.
their purpose is different. Yeah. So when we are looking at the trajectory of where the child started its life, what were the circumstances, where did it grow up? It's not only about neglect. Sometimes there can be very distressing circumstances of the situation in that environment. Um, there could be violence, there could be loud conflicts between the parents, there could be poverty, hunger, illness, all kinds of circumstances due to which the birth family is not able to take care of their children. They are either, relinquished or they are abandoned.
Hmm.
And sometimes there are stories of being exploited, abused, and with all that history, I don't want to sort of project that this is what all children have. It's also neglect in terms of no particular exploitation, abuse happening, but poverty leads children to have to fend for themselves, families where there isn't enough to eat. Illness is another reason. Unintentionally, the child gets neglected. So these are all circumstances that um, impact the development of the growing child. And coming into an institution, being provided care, being provided medical care, and then being prepared in some way to join a family, it's the best that society can do for that child. And then parents coming forward to adopt an older child is a wonderful thought. But you see, the intention is not enough because this child is already used to of taking care of its own self. The child is used to,
Correct.
and why should a child be trusting? Yeah, because the child's trust has not been met with consistent care. So there is mistrust for the child. There is a sense of having to take care of its own. You know, uh, a lot of older children who come into families, parents over a period of time recognize that such a child is um, very self sufficient. And a parent might want to do for the child, very simply things like, come, let me comb your hair, come, let me help you with some task, very simply. But a child is not used to receiving help in this way. And therefore, there is a difficulty for that because uh, just one episode of somebody helping and the child trusting, what if that trust is not upheld on an ongoing basis? And that
Mm.
is part of the child's history. So these are some things that families and parents who are intending to adopt an older child have to be informing themselves and learning that they will have to, as Radhika was describing and also Vandana said, right, that articulation, expression of difficult feelings. A child might be very good at describing, when all is good, they'd be very happy and they'd describe great, or they would be very exuberant in saying, the good things. But it's the difficult feelings that are difficult to express, not just with in adoption. I mean, I see people who have nothing to do with adoption. They've grown up in their natural, normal birth families, and families have patterns in which difficult feelings are not spoken about, not expressed. There are different kinds of traditions about be strong, and a child kind of tends to understand that be strong means that we don't show that we are sad or disappointed. In case of a child, older child, adoption, these are rather intensified, and
Mm.
a lot of preparation is required for older child adoption. And I think it's the placement, the whole system of which does the placement has to also recognize. Sometimes they do recognize, they do mention it, but they may not have adequate resources to prepare the parents.
Correct.
And the openness to learn about, I'm going into a different kind of experience. There is something Radhika mentioned about getting to read, getting to know. It's not just about knowing, one has to sort of spend more time looking inward and asking, where am I coming from? What am I hoping for? What is the best outcome that I can look for? And naturally, parents also have lots of expectations, the child having to, adjust in the family, and the child comes from a different background. So, at the simplest, one is a mismatch of expectation. It's very hard to know what the child is needing or is understanding about family. But the everyday routine and how flexible are parents, how well emotionally regulated is a parent themselves. So these
Mhm.
are a lot of things that need to be looked at. So I personally do. I mean, I do get. I have requests from various SARS, adoption agencies to do pre-adoption counseling plus assessment. And
So,
sometimes the hard task I have is to say this parent is not yet ready.
mhm.
So
So,
a lot of
Gayatri,
preparation.
sorry to interrupt you in
Mhm.
between. So, because it's just the question popped up in my mind in between. So, just before I forget, I want to ask you this. So, I'm sure a lot of the audiences they also have the same question. So, are the agencies not doing these pre-adoption counseling? Because what I understand right now is before the Kara was regularized and from 2015 October onwards, before that there were times that like if somebody wanted to adopt an older child, they were given some time to come and interact with the child before, there was some, I would say the buffer time wherein the child gets to understand how the parent is, or the family that the child will be going to, or even the parents could interact. So after the Tara has come into picture, like I'm sure when Vandana and Radhika adopted, so I want to know from both the parents here, first, that were you given any time to interact with your child before you went ahead and brought them home? That is one thing for the parents. And then I want to understand from Gayatri, after they have finished, that how exactly the agencies or the parents can go ahead with this, like how can they approach to meet the child or to interact with the child before the child comes home. So can Vandana answer first?
Yes, Shahana. So, in my experience, I was given an opportunity to talk with my daughter a couple of times over video calls, WhatsApp calls. And when she came home, I asked her how was the experience, and she said the orphanage caretakers would prompt behind her when she would speak. So it was a good interaction. We would speak for about 5 to 10 minutes. I would ask about her likes and dislikes, how the day went, and all, and I could see the excitement in her face that was building up day by day when the gotcha day was coming near. So that was the kind of interaction.
Mm-hmm.
I was told the child was in eighth standard and that she's a very intelligent child. When she came home, she had a lot of difficulty adjusting. I had to get her admitted in class 7, and she found it really challenging to sit still and do her homework. So I could not preempt these challenges because I was told she was doing well. So I think a little more interaction, more personal interaction could help. Uh, but I think that is something that my experience tells me. I'm not sure,
Mm-hmm.
Radhika, how would you like to address it?
Yeah. Radhika, how about your experience in this?
Yeah. So even we had 2 to 3 video calls, but as I said, Priya, she just used to speak yes and no. So it was a
Mm-hmm.
question and answer, and that too yes and no kind of a conversation with Priya, because she could not speak anything. But we showed her the house, and then we told her this is your dada and yours room, and we got her one big doll. We showed her because we wanted her to speak something, but she could not speak.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the caretaker told me she is good in terms of like behavior with others, and she interacts with her friends and all. So we were okay with that. Uh, and what was the other question? Because I just don't want to wander here and there, Sahana.
No, my question was like the first thing was like how many times did you interact and how was
Okay,
the
okay.
interaction? So then after she came home, basically, like as you said,
Hmm.
I understand from Vandana's answer and your answer that both the children are having two different personalities. One is more expressive, and the other one is little what you say, introvert sort of a person, because she takes time to open up probably, right?
Correct,
So,
correct.
were these 2 to 3 interactions enough to understand, like how the child is, or will you be able to bond with her or not? Did you had that kind of doubt, Radhika, like because she doesn't interact much, so how good or how easy will be the communication? Did you had that doubt in your mind?
So at that time, Sahana, we were not having any idea. It's an expression problem and all. So we just
Mm-hmm.
thought kids will get a little bit anxious, like when you try to speak to them on a phone call. Maybe once we go there, she will open up.
Mm-hmm.
But she is not at all introvert. Regular like interactions and all. Now she has become very very friendly, and we will interact like anything. She will, like, we have to tell her sometimes that keep quiet for some time.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not like that. She is not at all introvert. It's only thing is she cannot express herself in right word. It's a articulation problem, but that
Okay.
too she's getting over it. And when she came home, she was studying in fourth standard. She was 12
Mm-hmm.
years old, but she was studying in fourth standard.
Mm-hmm.
So she was 3 years behind in studies, and her sa also told us that she's not doing that great in studies.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but maybe it is lack of attention. Because of lack of attention and COVID time, school was closed, so attention was given to only 10th standard and 12th standard students in the institution. And she's not at all studious, so these like kids, they don't want to study, so and nobody is paying attention, nobody will ask for homework and all. So
Mm-hmm.
it the 1 year was gone like that. And but when she came home, we saw that she's not even able to understand 1 plus 1. She is not even able to understand the clock,
Mm-hmm.
and so many other things also. But
Mm-hmm.
slowly, slowly, we realized it is lack of exposure and lack of experience. And
Right.
not every kid will be intelligent in studies. She is, otherwise, she is a street smart girl. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
she will speak, her reactions are like very neutral sometimes. When she will speak to her ajji, she will speak
Mm-hmm.
politely. When she will speak to her brother, she will fight like anything. So she is smart, but in studies she's not doing that great. So we started with very very basic things like ABCD and 1 2 3 4.
Mm-hmm.
We completed our fourth standard from the same school. Somehow she submitted the papers and all. We have not got the certificate from the school yet. So there we are facing difficulties, but we'll get. But now we are not going to put her in any school because she's 13 complete. So if she sits
Mm-hmm.
with third or fourth standard children, she will not feel good. And if we
Correct.
put her in seventh or eighth standard, she will not be able to cope up. But she is doing very good with the personal tuition, and all. So that kind of grooming we are giving her, and we are following NIOS pattern. So uh,
Okay.
yeah, NIOS is a great platform, I will say. So
Mm-hmm.
we have started with first level of NIOS. Complete 1 year we'll spend, and we are hoping like within 3 to 4 years, she will be at par with other peers, her peers. Because
Yeah,
like
that's
lot of exposure is there in family life. Lot of
correct.
functions, other kids will come.
Mm-hmm.
She will play computer games, mobile games. See, these things also teach you many a times. She will help me in cooking. So through like, see, every moment is learning moment. That's what we realized. Whatever, even if she is not doing anything, you are learning some or other thing.
Correct. So basically, Gayatri, what I understand from both Vandana and Radhika's responses is when you compare to the educational, importance that the agencies or the institutions give, that is not obviously at par with what a family or a parent can give to the child. So, any idea like what how the agencies are doing? Because this question has been asked multiple times to me and many others in my team, that what is the educational background, what to expect from the children, like are the children going to schools in the agencies, like any government school they have been enrolled to, or is there any teacher who is coming and teaching in the institution? So these kind of questions come often. So if you can put some light on this aspect, it would be really great.
Right. I think if we question what are the agencies doing about the education of this child, we probably will be putting the light in the wrong place.
Mm-hmm.
From the time that the child is in an agency, in an institution, they are mandated to send the child to school. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think agencies are failing in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
The difficulty is that the emotional internal life of a child matters a lot in their learning development, right?
Correct.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you think if a child has been in the institution from the beginning and started with, let's say, from the time it is kindergarten and going upwards, that child, because of that consistency, is likely to be doing the best, making the best of that exposure in that environment. It is the
Mm-hmm.
multiple disruptions and losses and gaps, displacements which is affecting the child's trajectory of learning. Yeah.
Right.
And so I don't think it's a gap from the agency in that sense, because like somebody said, from institutions that are catering to the care of larger number of children,
Mm-hmm.
varied ages of children. Some children maybe with mental illness, some children with developmental difficulties, some children with medical problems, some children where the child has not yet been. There is some birth family that is still there, comes down once in 6 months, once in a year, whatever it is. This is the
Mm-hmm.
history of the child, that the child is not verbally but non-verbally aware. So
Mm-hmm.
our losses, our traumas do not reside in our conscious mind. They are there in the back somewhere. And these are the factors which very often affect the learning capacity, for the scholastic learning for the child. Sometimes the circumstances at the time when the child was conceived and in the antenatal period, we're talking about poverty or any other kind of difficulties that the birth mother would have gone through, also could have malnutrition, also could leave some impact,
Right.
right? So rather than look at what causes all these gaps, it would be helpful to see how can we recognize the strengths that the child comes with. The child is physically
Right.
able,
Absolutely. Hmm.
how to help this child channelize that energy. The child is dexterous. Radhika says her daughter is helping in the kitchen, and so where does the child's natural inclination lie? Not to overstimulate it because it becomes a useful skill, but also to start from there and then slowly guide the child into learning all the other things. I mean, in the field of education, they do talk about different kinds of intelligence, such as mathematical intelligence, numerical intelligence, linguistic intelligence. I'm not from a background of education, but I do know that there are some children who might be slow learning the numbers, but they do very
Mm-hmm.
well with language and alphabets.
Right.
And
Right.
some
Hmm.
children can do numbers very well, but they might be a little slow with alphabets and language. Children can be have the sense. What we are looking at eventually is not, even youngsters with difficulties scoring and moving forward in the class. uh, the sense that somebody believes in me, the sense that I am worthwhile, will propel the child from a third standard to doing something way beyond, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we are also hearing in common this thing. The other day I was reading about somebody who is holding a very important role in certain policy making in agricultural policies. And this gentleman, I think, if I read it properly, he has a very nominal education, college education. I have had a colleague of medical personnel who's going to receive a award for proficiency in ethical medical ethics very soon. He's a doctor with an MBBS, no major degrees, but these are self-made people and who can still contribute. Coming back to children, they may not be able to do scholastically well. We cannot, the NIOS, as Radhika mentioned, is an excellent framework for
Correct.
education.
Mm-hmm.
There are many other alternate schools. Children need other children. Children need a lot of play. No matter what their age, they need the right kind of, warmth, touch, hugging, holding, feeling of safety. They need, if they're going all over the place, they need to be held this way. If they are shrinking like this, they need to be supported to expand. Emotions play a big role here, the emotional internal life.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that goes with language also. Like, I think in the beginning you were asking about the interaction between the prospective parents and the child, and certainly in the older system, The parents
Correct.
could take a lot of time. There have been institutions who've had they have joined up with other organizations to help counsel the parents, help
Mm-hmm.
counsel the older child. But these are cost intensive, these are time intensive. And what is happening in the current situation is that the timelines have become very
Short.
tight.
Hmm.
Therefore, with even if they intend to, sometimes adequate preparation of parents is not happening. Preparation of children is also very important. And given the rules of institutions, who can come, who can go, where is this institution? I'd be happy to create a team of my colleagues and do counseling for the children. But some of these institutions are in rather remote places, so to create that kind of a system is difficult. The pandemic has created difficulties of movement.
Correct.
Um, we've been able to take the advantage of the online medium, but children don't do very well with the online medium. They need to get a sense of this person,
Hmm.
and and each every child needs her or his own time to take to and trust a counselor. So there are challenges, and wherever in whatever pockets we can make that attempt and expand the support. I think post adoption support is a very, very, very what an child parent is saying in the first year after adoption, 5 years after adoption, 10 years after adoption, the stories will differ. And we have to hold that faith that every time there is a difficulty, it's an opportunity to bond. And that's where parents are being uh, called upon to grow themselves every time there is a difficulty.
Right, right.
And that's when
So,
they need hand holding. The parents need a lot of hand holding because they come with such big hearts, and one can easily feel like a failure because when a child is going through something emotional and the child is not able to say, it might get angry. The parents feel demotivated.
mhm.
They need hand holding. They need support.
So your advice will be to the parents if they are facing any sort of challenges. It's always better to like go ahead and talk to a counselor and like take help, because as you said, the parents need more hand holding when compared to the children, because children are still growing, they are building their senses, they are still learning,
I
right?
would say before going to the counselor, join up with other adoptive parents.
Adoptive parents, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So the support groups will also be really
Very,
helpful in
very
that.
important. Yeah, very
Right.
important.
Okay. So there are a couple of questions which are pouring in, and I think it's a good time to start answering them, because we have quite a number of questions. They are coming. Um, so we have this notion that older children may not adjust well in the family, as they will have their own way of thinking, and changing that would be a challenge for us. So this is a question from one of our viewers. So what would you like to say, Gayatri, on this?
All right. First of all, why are we intending to change the child's thinking? Right? We have to believe that if you and I lived in those circumstances that the child did, that's exactly how we would think. Yeah. So before we think that we have to change, we have to go to the what are the circumstances under which the child came to think this way. I think one of the and also within all of us there is a desire, like I think Radhika was mentioning, in institutions the child is living a fairly regimented life. A child's notion is, when I go home I will be able to do anything. So, parent needs to help the child know where can they have that freedom and where will they need to be within a little more contained zone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, and whatever a child is thinking, it has come to think that way based on whatever influences the child has had. Peers have a lot of, I mean, leave alone adoption, a family by adoption, regular families. A child of 8 and 10 comes and says, I need to have a mobile because everybody else has a mobile. This is not about child thinking, this is about a child desiring and want to be like everybody else. Parents need to reflect on, is their thinking in any way rigid? Is there room for some flexibility? And certainly become more informed and reflective parents. Where is my thinking coming from? And then be able to help, first understand the child, listen to the child. What is the child's intention in whatever the child may, he or she may be presenting? And yes, then we open a scope for helping to change the child's thinking. I hope I have answered the uh, viewer's question here, because we need to not go to the change in thinking first, but understand where the child is coming from. Some kinds of thinking will be a long term change, such as trusting the parent. Trust, like I said earlier, child is very self sufficient.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
How do we create a situation where we take opportunities to help the child? For a child who's self sufficient, it feels like a um, failure if I can't do, because that's how the child has lived. um, to tap into occasions where the parent might step in and do for the child and enjoy that doing for the child. Be able to say, I would like to do this for you. I would enjoy combing your hair. I would like to do something with you, if not for you. I would like to do something with you. These are
Correct.
ways of building trust for the child.
All right. Okay, so there is one more question that's coming from one more audience of us. Like, I think this Radhika will be the right person to answer this. They're asking, if I have a biological kid, is it advisable for me to adopt an older kid? Will the two children ever bond?
Yeah, yeah, it is happening from day one in our case. In fact, my son like this idea very much. I said, Ariman, can we go for adoption? He liked this idea very much, and then we started thinking very positively and optimistically about this. And in
Mhm.
fact, he convinced everyone in the family. So see, even if like we have our bios with us and they were like 15 years, 16 years, or my son was 18 years old, they are kids only. Okay, so they will be very flexible. And in fact, from day one we were like waiting when they will fight, my son and my daughter, because then it will become a normal
Yeah.
thing, right? So
Correct.
they fight, they will come together, like that it will happen, they will share, they will care for each other. So it happens, like if the intention is there on both sides, it will definitely happen.
Right. So there's one more question. I think this Vandana will be the right person to answer. They're asking, how easy is it for the first time parents to adopt an older child? If they decide to adopt an older child, which age group would be, like easiest?
I'll speak from my own experience, Shahana. Although my child is 12 years old, when I brought her home, she would innocently ask me, why didn't you adopt me earlier when I was little? Rather, sometimes she would tell my mom that you could have adopted me, then mom could have been my sister. So she would very innocently ask these questions. So, you know, from my experience, no child is too old to adopt. This is a lovely child who truly deserved a loving family, and now she's got that. It may take her time to get used to this kind of environment. She's made a lot of friends in the neighborhood. She's very talented, and she's fond of drawing, dancing. So she's a talented child. I got her admitted into dance classes. She
Wow.
recently learned how to ride a bicycle, so she's developing all these skills when now she's getting that exposure. So we got to give this opportunity to all the children. Uh, so you got to
Wow.
decide what age group you'd like to have in your
Mm-hmm.
family. But there are children who are waiting for loving families.
Correct. So there's one more question. I think this is a very important question, rather. So they're asking, is there any place or institution where we get counseling for ourselves before adoption, either over phone or in person? So
So
this
I
I
can
open
take
for all
that up.
three of you. So whoever wishes to answer this question can take it up.
Yeah, maybe I can say something and then Gayatri, you and Vandana, you can add on top of that. In
Sure.
our case, we didn't get any counseling, whereas in the different groups, adoption groups, foreign parents, they do get counseling sessions, and like a pregnant mom will get the training and preparation sessions. Even adoptive parents will get some sessions. But in India, I think the adoptive parents, they don't have any formal sessions. But our SAR director, she is a very matured lady. So she had one very brief session with us on our expectations and how the life of the children in orphanage, how the life is, and how their routine is, and how what you can expect. And discipline is very important, and all such kind of things she told us on the day of adoption. But I think if we have some preparatory sessions, like at least 3 to 4 sessions for the adoptive parents, it will help tremendously. Because as rightly Gayatri said, children don't need any kind of preparation. Because if they say yes, older kids, if they say yes for adoption, that means they are ready and they want to go for it. But parents definitely need lot of preparation, how to handle the children. So parent, if they get proper counseling and training, it will be really good and less stressful kind of a situation for everyone.
Right. So, what are the institutions or, like any place or any person or any organization where they can reach out to, like get some kind of counseling? Like probably if it's, support groups, rather, I would say there are like families of joy is there, then, like people's group of adoption is there. There are a lot of, support groups available on Facebook and other WhatsApp groups are there. So, do you think only the support groups will help, or is there any recognized institutions also who are helping, parents to prepare? Like, if you approach them, of course, there is as you said, voluntarily things are not happening here in India. So, if parents wants a counseling, or if parents wants to, like approach a counselor, so where exactly they should look for?
Is that question to me, Sahana?
Yeah, Gayatri, yes, you can answer, Gayatri.
Yeah. So I would say that in comparison to the situation 20, 25 years ago, perhaps there was not so much available. But if parents look enough and ask around enough, they will find support groups, as there are many in India. Um, Also came about, and many parents, adoptive parents themselves, moved on to become mental health professionals. Um, if their child had learning difficulties, they trained themselves to help the children. They volunteered with institutions. So a lot of such growth has happened through support groups. Yeah, I think. I'm based in Bangalore, and I have to say I am in touch with a lot of professionals and volunteers. Kara is also supporting and trying to build a system by which locally in every state there will be people who are trained as adoption counselors. I know there's a lot of initiative on the part of Kara. The adoption agencies, I tend to call them agencies because that's the older terminology, but if we say SA, from the number of pre adoption counseling and assessments that I have done in the last 1 year, I can say that they are also informed who are the people available. So there is help available. It's just that depends on where we are looking for such help. Optimally, the SA themselves need to be equipped with at least 5 names within their district, within the state, where they can, they say that. So this is how I have had somebody say that, ma'am, madam, I called up so and so, but she's not free right now. So can you please spend some time with me? It was mandated that they take a report and send us, submit it to the SA, that they have received counseling, and they needed to be assessed. But I'm trying to say is the SARs are the few SARs with whom I have interacted. They do know who is available. If I don't have the time, I am able to say I have these 5 names that I can give. These are people one can go to. What tends to happen is that I think we in India generally look out for services free of charge. Some
Right.
counselors may charge
Mm-hmm.
for their time, and that could be a hindrance to people from a certain background. But for a middle class a person from the middle class or upper middle class background, it should not be a hindrance to find a counselor, adoption informed counselors. There are a lot of, I have to say, there are mental health professionals, counselors, therapists. Not all of them are adoption informed because adoption needs a little in depth understanding of something that we call as attachment and bonding. And what are, the parents' own style of attachment often has a bearing on how they raise their children. So these are some things that the adoption counselor needs to know. There is here in Bangalore where I work with an organization called Parivartan, and I have a bunch of colleagues with, I have done some trainings. I also know with the adoption scrutiny here in Bangalore, they have been doing trainings for social workers. Kara has initiated trainings for adoption counselors. So I might be wrong whether it is Kara or, but I do know there is a lot of movement to prepare more professionals to be adoption
Mm-hmm.
counselors. People,
Right.
I have to say, often parents themselves are very resistant. They may either think what's there in, a child will come, I will provide care. Some parents might think, I already am a parent, so what more do I need to know?
Mm.
That is the resistance I would be most cautious about, because if intending parent is not open to learning and to say that I don't know things, I want to learn, starting with I want to learn from the child, I want to learn from the placement agency, I want to learn from other adoptive parents, I want to learn from my own emotions. They will make, I mean, these are people who will make excellent parents. You can't know everything, right? And
Right.
like
Right.
Vandana was saying, my daughter is interested in dancing and painting. What do you like, what do you do? And help that child to develop where they are.
Correct.
So
So
it
I
is less than abroad, Sahana, but a lot of initiative is happening. What you are doing right now is also a wonderful opportunity to
thank you
expand
so
that
much.
phase.
Thank you so much. That's what is our entire intention,
Yeah.
through Pragna, that we bring in as much awareness and information for the people free of cost, because we are not charging anything. We want as many people to know, get educated, learn about it, ask questions, and be prepared for their, like future life with adoption. So we have one more question. I think we'll close after this question. The question is: as the child is older, isn't it hard on the child? Like they're stressed and they have mixed emotions while being adopted.
It's very very hard for the child also, so that we have to accept, because they come from a different culture. My daughter is from Punjab and we stay in Maharashtra. So even if she was in an orphanage, it was a different culture, different language for her.
Mm-hmm.
Hindi was not her like day-to-day language. She used to speak in Punjabi only, but she started communicating with us in Hindi,
Mm-hmm.
and now she says, "Mom, I will teach you Punjabi as well." So
Wow.
yeah, so it's very difficult. Just to summarize, for the children also, that we have to keep in mind 24 by 7. It's difficult for them to sleep alone. It's difficult for them to cope up with grandparents and parents as well. Dad will be
Correct.
strict, mom will be not strict, but mom will expect help. So all such kind of things, they are very difficult for them. So we as a parent, we have to keep that in the mind, and don't expect too much from the children, at least like initially 6 7 months, and then you will get everything back, everything from them. So at the end of 1 year, at least I can say that to everyone.
Right. I think like the famous proverb says, I don't remember the proverb exactly, but it says like expectations are the, cause for your grief or sorrows. So less
You
is
will
the
realize that.
expectations, like better is the learning and more is, like what you're welcoming the positive vibes.
Correct,
Right?
correct. Very true. They will come up with lot of expectations because see, they are kids. They are not at all matured. So what they fantasize is once I go and I will get everything. I will get toys. I will go to movies with them. So they come up with those thoughts.
Correct.
And we Indian parents are very idealistic parents. So we want everything from day one. So even that happened with me as well. So I will very honestly say that in the group, 3 months were very difficult. So we should not expect from them. And even our bio kids will also expect, my 19 years son will also expect lot of costly things from me. We have to say no. So we
Correct.
don't have to bias just because they are adoptive kids.
Mhm.
Sometimes we become bias for them as well. So kids are kids. They will expect everything from you. So just you have to go through it. Don't.
Correct.
And lot of adoptive parents, I will recommend everyone connect, stay in touch with adoptive
Yeah.
parents.
Mhm. So basically, you mean to say like with the community that you built before adoption with the support groups, that community should be continued even after adoption, because from there you can definitely seek help, understand, because what you might be facing, someone else may also be facing. So they may have some solution, you may have some solution. So sharing it mutually will definitely help each other. That's what I
Yes,
believe
yes.
in, like,
Me and
right?
Vandana also we connected twice, and it was such a nice conversation, productive, constructive conversation between both of us. So it has helped both of us.
Correct.
So I think that's a kind of a counseling only. And people like Gayatri, like what she was saying, it's very true. We Indian parents, we expect everything for free of
Hmm.
cost. So because later we have to invest something, or like invest in like some therapy sessions or some
Hmm.
counseling sessions for the kids, so that we have to be very ready for that.
Hmm. Right.
I'd just like to also add,
Sure.
I think I'll very strongly, I mean, I just love what Radhika was saying, and just to know that both of you, there's so much support. So eventually, parents also need to feel their humanness, that they're trying hard. Maybe sometimes they should not be trying too hard. And like she said, sometimes we might be veering on the side of becoming too soft, and we need somebody to help us say,
Correct.
hey, it's
Mm-hmm.
okay, the child will bear the disappointment if you are around to be there to support the child. So the strengthening of the parenting is important. There was one comment earlier about who needs therapy. I would always recommend that since life flows down from the parent to child, if we strengthen the life higher up, then the child gets the benefit of, the parent gets the benefit of therapy, that then child will automatically get it. Some children who have been adopted late, I mean as older children, given that there might be some trauma in the history, which may at some point come up, where they would have seen either of their parent die under very difficult, in an accident or by suicide. These are some traumatic memories that might emerge at a certain later point in time, and both parent and child as parents and child as a family can also receive help. Sometimes in those cases, the child will need a little extra support. There are trauma informed approaches to help the child be able to set that image away and move forward in the bonding.
Right.
But most
So,
cases, it's the parents who need the hand holding.
right. Okay, there's one last question. I think this is really important that I'll definitely want you to take up, Gayatri. So the question is, if a child remembers his or her relationship with the parents or family, and if we as adoptive parents do not want the child to have any ties with them any further, what type of conversation should we have? Do we also need to opt for counseling? Will that be effective?
See, the birth parent of the child came first. And one of the most important aspects of adoptive bonding is the adoptive family parents must honor that the parents of the child gave birth to this child. They came first. And if those, whatever the circumstances of those, that the set of parents or parent, we have to respect and regard those parents.
Mm-hmm.
And in our heart we have to build that relationship. So to believe that the child should not have that tie, that it can be cut off and bonded here, is actually a fallacy. Yeah. So these are, if this is a struggle for an adoptive parent, they can certainly talk to an adoption counselor. Why it is important to recognize and honor and respect the third part in the triad. It's not just the adoptive parent and the child. There is a birth parent who came before me. Yeah. So that point has to be recognized, and it's important for the child to feel that bond. I mean, those parents are not there. What will the child do? The child is most helpless. The child has this huge history, and the child wants answers. Yeah. So it is how to talk to the child about the her or his origins, birth parents, what happened. Very often we don't even know what happened, but how to have that conversation. Other adoptive parents are very good to help with that. And if it is very specific kind of struggle, an adoption counselor. So we have to think about, why do I want that tie to be cut off?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, that's a natural tie. We yeah, emotionally we cannot cut it off. The
Correct.
child will keep quiet and not talk about it. It will go underground, and it will impact the bond with the adoptive parent.
Right, right, right. So, I think we are done with most of our questions, and some of them are quite similar. So, it's time to conclude. And thank you to Gayatri, Radhika, and Vandana for making sessions such insightful and comprehensive. And I would also like to thank our media partners, iAsia News Music, for broadcasting this panel discussion live on its Facebook channel across 170 plus countries. And I would also like to thank the CEO and head of iAsia News, Dr. Krishna, and COO of iAsia News, Anu, and team of iAsia News Music in Bangalore, where Vidya Sagar is our CEO, and head of creative design and technical is Mr. Jayant, head of public relations Vinuta Jayant, along with Kishore Bhatia from Dubai, and their managers for social media is Anandita and Sagar. So, thank you so much, everyone. And last but not the least, I would like to thank my team, Kirtana, Digangana, and Kameshwari, for standing beside me and supporting me every time. And thank you so much once again, everyone. And have a happy weekend. Have a happy Sunday. Thank you so much. Namaste. Jai Hind.
Thank you.
Thank you.